Hi guys, we love you here. Okay, uh, Chris Watts case. Um, the coworker, Troy McCAY. He's originally from Kansas. Um, he had sent, or Chris had sent him a text, or sent somebody a text on the Sunday, the 12th. Um, Troy says the last time he talked to Chris in person was a Friday. Um, they met up somewhere. I'm not sure if he met up near the office or met up somewhere, but it was after taking Shannon to the airport, and it was something about a fire stick. And he says Bella and Cece were in the truck, the SUV, um, the Lexus, and so they were talking. And he says they were talking about that job that Chris was going to on Monday. I could have sworn he said that. Uh, so, Chris knew about that job on Friday in the discussion because apparently there was a leak and this job needed to be um, looked at for safety reasons, and they were concerned about it because apparently they can get a big fine for leaks if an inspector came suddenly there to look at the oil tanks, stuff like that. Well, anyway, on the so the Monday morning on the 13th of August, 2018, he said he left for work about 6:30, and he didn't get to the job until about 6:43 a.m. But and he was running late that day for some reason. He was running late, and then just before 6:43 a.m. or around that time, Chris had called him, but he had to decline the call because he was driving, and they're not allowed to talk and text or nothing on the phone because they get a hefty fine um, if they get caught. And he couldn't afford to get any kind of fine or anything like that, so it's just not worth it, and you know, stuff like that. So he gets to the office, and the detective asked him where he parks his car, and he said he kind of parks it on the north part of the parking lot. Um, I guess that's near the office, the break room kind of area like that. And he goes into the office, and the first thing he has to do is look into his computer. They have to check in, you know, like clocking in sort of thing, get up to scrap on what's going on for the day. Um, then he has to go and get like a report, with Luke um, or Chad. Um, and then they discuss about checking the piping unit on site 319. There was a leak on the pass line, the bypass line, and the oil was kind of bubbling up and over, and it was needed attention. Well, anyway, about 7:45 a.m. on the road heading to the site 319, about 7:40 or something like that, he gets a call from Chris, but he pulls over to answer that call because even though he's on the grounds, he can't drive and use his phone. He must stop and pull over because I guess if they're calling from work phones and you're moving, I guess they look at that too. So anyway, safety reasons. It's all to do with safety reasons. Anyway, and where he pulled over was about, I don't know, it wasn't far from the site, but the site he was heading for was only about 10 minutes away. He goes, the detectives asked him, what did you talk about with Chris? He said, work, the pipeline. He said Chris told him on Friday he would do the job at Site 319. And Monday morning, he also called Chad to tell him that he would go. That's where the text came from that Sunday night. He had called Chad. That's one of his supervisors. Luke and Chad are the supervisors. That he would be heading that way Monday morning, that he is doing the job. And that was about 5 p.m. on the Sunday afternoon, and that was by text. Comes about 8:30 a.m. in the morning. Chris' vehicle was parked near, his headlights were facing the tanks or something. And Troy thought that was odd where Chris had parked his car, because he normally don't park his truck. He doesn't park his truck there, and nor does anybody else, because apparently he says when people turn their vehicles around in a circle, the reason why they do that is so they don't back out. It's another safety issue, I guess. They get in the habit of driving in and driving out. No backing out. No backing in. You try to just go forward with everything, just in case there's somebody behind you or you hit something. So they always try to go around the circle and then park their car facing, like the entranceway, I guess, something like that. So anyway, he thought, that was odd, unusual for Chris. So anyway, he didn't think nothing more of that. He just thought that was unusual. It's only because it's been brought to his attention, by the detective, what was unusual about Chris that day. He gets there and, Chris had got his shovel out, and he kind of dug a hole by the bypass line, and he was checking a few things, stuff like that. And when Troy got there, Chad and Melissa were there. Now, Chad is his supervisor, and Melissa is in training. She's in training, and they are trying to get her to do a few things by herself, as part of her training. And then they have to just be with her to just let her do it and check the stuff or whatever. And then Chad and Melissa parks their vehicle facing the entranceway, and they leave. And then Troy was saying, we gotta go and stuff like that. But Chris says, hold on a minute. I've got to put some dirt back in the hole or something, and then I can leave. The detective asked Chris, not Chris, but asked Troy, how Chris was acting, or how was he that day? Like, what was he dressed? What was he wearing? That sort of stuff. He says, "Oh, um, his normal dress," but he says, but it was different. He was wearing baggy shirt, a baggy shirt, and he was very untidy dressed. You know, I can't remember the exact words he said, but I'll just give you an example. It was like he must have got dressed with his eyes closed or in the dark because he was so messy dressed, and he couldn't figure out why, because Chris usually dresses nice, and he looked like he was in a rush and got dressed that morning. And he said he found it odd that he was wearing old boots, and he knows for a fact that Chris bought brand new boots, and these boots had a hole in. So he kind of noticed his boots. That's because he knew Chris was not dressed properly, because he said because he's higher ranking, they have to look well dressed, well groomed, and they like their workers to look good, I guess, look the part, don't look scruffy kind of thing, even if you are um, getting dirty and stuff like that on the job, like you do. Mm. So he thought that was odd. And so as they go on talking, and then he says about the baggy shirt that he was wearing. Well, that couldn't have been that gray shirt he was wearing when he got home that day on the 13th, when he finally got home. Because wasn't he in a gray shirt with long sleeves? And I've seen him wear that shirt before. When, oops, we did it again. Excuse me. He was wearing that shirt. It looked like the same shirt. So whatever shirt he was talking about, the baggy shirt, what happened to that shirt? What happened to that shirt? We'd like to know, but I guess it don't matter. But he wasn't wearing that shirt when he came home that day. But he said, but he had lost a lot of weight in the last year, definitely the last 6 months. He said, so maybe that's why his shirt was so baggy. But we know that couldn't have been the same shirt he came home in, because that shirt he came in was gray and it was normal fitting for him. So he had changed his shirt, and God knows where he threw that shirt. Um, Maybe he just put that shirt on top of his other shirt, stopping getting dirty. But Troy said he didn't see no dirt or um, anything on his shirt. Well, I guess he might not have noticed that. He wasn't looking that closely, but he did notice his boots. And another thing he noticed, he said he had one trouser leg um, hanging over his boot. He said, that's not normal. You don't dress like that. So he's thinking that was strange. What the hell? And he did say something. What, did you forget to get dressed this morning or something? Making a joke. He made a joke to him about it. And anyway, he did make a joke about that. And he thinks, well, maybe he was tired this morning. He's tired. So he put it down to, tiredness. It's just one lazy day he's having today. But he says as they keep talking, it was time to move on to his next job. He says so, and we left. And this for the next job, because this one of the tanks, I think he was talking about 319, or it might have been 1029, but he was talking about a tank that they had to make sure that it was working right and fixed up, because next week it was ready to be, I guess, emptied, ready to go, or something like that. So anyway, he heads to number site 1029. That was his next job. And then before he left, like I said, he said before he left, Chris had to make sure that that puddle of oil was fine and all cleaned up properly. He said, and then, I don't know, this is about 11 a.m. ish, but before that, Chris kept on making phone calls or getting texts. He said at about 11 a.m., Chris had a very bad stomachache, and there was nowhere to go to the bathroom. And I guess, Chris' stomach was getting all upset when it was tied up in knots, I bet. And this is where I think he was shitting himself, literally shitting himself. So wonder he didn't shit his pants. Do you know what I mean? Because the coworker said, you know, sometimes you just gotta take a dump where you gotta take a dump. Go over there. Go over there by those weeds, by the flowers. What they call them, weeds. Those, I don't know what kind of flowers they were. Were they like sunflowers, wildflowers, or whatever? And that's why Chris went to the bathroom. But you know what? Like a lot of people are thinking, why did he choose that area to go take a dump? Well, Troy was telling him to go over there and take a dump. Hey, we all have to do it sometimes. When you gotta go, you gotta go. And he said, I got to go home. This was about, it's still about 11:15. He said, and he walked back to his truck to get in his truck. And he said, but Chris went past this truck and looked up in the sky and took one last look, and then went back around his truck and got in it and left. And now he thinks about it. He thinks, just like I said, he took one last look. He took one last look. My God. So, and they all had to get out of there for some reason, because it's important to lock all the gates when you leave. He said all the gates have to be locked and shut at certain times, because the farmer don't want his cows getting out. Yeah. So that's just surrounded by farmland. I don't know where these cows go. If it ain't even cows, it's his cattle. I just assume it's cows. But anyway, his livestock. And when anybody leaves a site, they have to, whenever they arrive and whenever they leave, they have to check in. And then they have to check out. I guess they do that by phone. This is another safety reason why they have to do that, is they want to make sure their workers are safe and nothing's happened to them. This is why they got to be at a site at a certain time, and they got to leave at a certain time, and they have to check in and out. So your time is accounted for. So, every minute is accounted for. Um, Chris was talking about no one can find Shannon. She's not answering her texts. She's not answering the phone. People's calling me all the time. He had been mentioning this to him, and then this was about between 11 and 12 noon, because he can't remember exactly what time it was. So he put 11 to 12 noon. I can't remember, but it took me about 5 minutes to get from that site, 319, to 1029 site. Troy says everybody has to check in and check out and stuff like that. Um, Troy said he got a O2 hit, and the office calls him to make sure it's okay. And that was about 11:21. He says why he got a call from the office, because something, if he backs his truck or does something to his truck and gets the exhaust, something to do with the exhaust, and blows on one of the sensors, I guess they're very, very, very touchy. He says it kind of sets the alarm off. So he got a call back to make sure everything's all right. Are you okay? Is everything all right with you? And then he has to say, yes, everything's fine. Nothing's wrong, you know, and all that and the other. He said Chris normally carries a jug of a big jug for water, as he always comes into the office um, for his break. No, he comes to the office for his break, and so he said that's normal. And then he's asking Troy, why did Chris jump on that job, you know, for site 319? Why did he jump on that job? And he kind of says, I don't know. I don't know why. He just said he'd do it. He said he'd do it for him, too. So he said he's a good guy. Uh, he's a good worker and that stuff like that. And we all kind of take care of our co-workers, help them out any way they can. And Chris has helped co-workers out many times, doing them favors, helping them out, showing them what to do, you know, being a good leader, I guess, you know. Then I guess he starts talking about August the 14th, which is a Tuesday morning. He says he got to the office for a meeting, and Luke, his boss, called in to say Chris will not be coming into work today. And this was about 6:31 a.m. in the morning. Then I had to go out to a location. I had to go out to a location that morning, but I got breakfast and then just shoot the shit, you know, talk to the guys, you know, what's going on today and all that and the other, you know, get their reports. And then he said he had to go help another coworker because he was new um, at the job and he wasn't confident enough to do this job by himself. He needed a little guidance, you know, and that was job site 67, 68. And then about, he said about 11:15 a.m., he had to be at a training class kind of thing. It's about air compressing, air compressor. You know, they had to get some update training on that. It's probably courses that you have to take through the year. You have to take a lot of certifications and training. It's required by law. Uh, but then he says he's starting to really, really get worried. He says it's just on his mind. He can't think properly. He can't concentrate. This is more or less how he's saying it. He said he's stressing to the sergeant, you know, the detective, that he's really worried about Shannon and the kids. It's Tuesday, and Chris is really short with his texts. He's not being Chris. It's like he's kind of being snappy with his texts. Do you know what I mean? Um, he's not saying a lot. He's gone real quiet, and that's unusual. So that's making him worry a little bit more. It really is. I mean, this guy's on the ball here. He's on the ball. He's like Nicole and Atkinson and a few of her other friends. He's on the ball. You know, when you think of something, your instinct, when you got good instinct, when you feel in your gut something's not right, it normally is not right. And he didn't even dare to think, but he said my mind was going there. That's more or less what he said. His mind was racing. And so he said, I get suspicious. So I want to go back to the site. He says, I want to go back there. I was worrying and worrying, and I must go back to the site. But he said his time was getting short, because this was getting late in the day, about 2 o'clock or so, or something like that. He said, but it was getting late because of other things he's got to do. But he does go back to the site. He gets to the site and he kind of takes a look, but he got interrupted by another truck that was there, the water guy or something. There was somebody there. And he gets distracted and he didn't want to act suspicious. I don't know. What would that guy say if you're there and you're looking around? I mean, I don't know, but it was getting late and that was on his mind too, by having to go back and do what he's got to do, and then he has to drive home because he lives a long, long way away from that company, and he was worried about his wife who babysits and has to um, do whatever she has to do, but he likes to be home, for whatever reason. Maybe he has to um, relieve her from some stress or something. I don't know, but he sounds like a good husband. He's trying not to be late home from work. But, I would have called her and said, honey, I got something to do. I'm just going to be about half an hour late. This is very important. Maybe if he just made that call and said that. Um, but anyway, he kind of takes a look in the fields. But like he said, he never made it. He never went and looked in the fields. He was heading towards where Chris was looking and acting suspicious. He was going to look, what, only if he went and looked, right? Only if he had got there. But time stopped him. Circumstances stopped him. But he said, but in my heart, I didn't want to believe. I didn't want to believe what I was thinking. He really didn't. He said it was his clothes that got to me. And the way he was looking out to the fields. That day, that Monday, yesterday, he's talking about Monday. He said, Shannon's been missing all day. He said she's still missing and Chris is acting weird. So all this made me want to look in them fields. But, well, if only he did. But you know what? It's a good job. I think God had his plans that day for him to go because he had to do something else. Because if he had found her body, he would have been distraught, heartbroken, and he would have, you know how it is, he finds the body, and that would have been heartbreaking. Anyway, Troy says his wife, he hasn't met Shannon too much, but first time he met it was last Christmas, 2017, at a Christmas party, because his wife promotes Thrive too, and they were both very worried. His wife, Wanda, I think his wife's called Wanda. They both say this is not adding up. It's not adding up at all. Come Wednesday, this is when the police call him. They call Troy on Wednesday. And, to ask him, and this is where he tells him all about it and stuff like that. But he also says he had told his boss he never ever wants to go back to site number 319. Please, please, I'll go anywhere. Don't never send me back there. Don't ever send me back there. He said, I can't handle that. I can't look at that field, and I can't look at that tank. I can't. Not there. So, of course, they tell him, no, we won't. We won't never send you back there. Not right now. I mean, time has to heal. It might never heal. But he says, I can't go back to that job. So, by having to check in a site and check out of a site, and you are no way allowed on that property at any other given time, there's a massive fine or something like that. They are only allowed to be on that site at designated times. It's all coordinated, and it's all checked in, checked out. You're in, you're out. So I'm thinking that as we guys thought that he may have took the kids earlier, maybe dug the hole earlier, or put the kids in the tank earlier. But there's just no way, as we know with the Texas, him being at home, him putting the kids back, and somebody said that Shannon's father talked to the kids that Sunday at some point. There's just no way that he could have done that. It looks like we just have to, that's a no. And then he was talking about the wedding ring. He goes, he took her wedding ring. That's because Chris, I don't know, Chris must have said he found the wedding ring, or he heard that he found the wedding ring that was in the house, that Chris took off her finger. He took off her finger, her wedding ring. He couldn't even bury her with her own wedding ring. He took the time to take it off her body. Oh yeah, he did. Yeah. What's that a symbol of? Well, we can have many thoughts on that. And so the detective is saying that you can get help, you can get therapy. I suggest that you get some help and get some time off work, and stuff like that, because I'm sure his boss Luke and Chad will give him time off because he's such a shock, and they were more than co-workers, and he liked Chris very much, and he could never imagine that he would turn out to be the guy he has turned out to be. Troy is absolutely heartbroken. He is a mess, and he's crying. He is shaken up. He's crying. For a man to cry and his voice is shaky, this brings my attention to, Nicole. Well, of course, she's not going to like Shannon because, if you're messing around with somebody's husband, you're not really there to like the wife, are you? Not emotional like that. So it brings me back to Nicole's interviews, her videos and her phone messages and texts. Nicole is talking. She's heartless. She forced her tears out that one time in the interview, the video, no, the taped video. Um, she forced a tear or two, and that lasted like for a minute. And she hasn't shaken in her voice. There's no shaking, there's no tears, there's no emotion with her. She is heartless. We all seen that. She hasn't even shed a tear for Chris. Now, okay then, but she's the one that loved him and liked him and was looking for a future with him. Okay, but she's not even upset about that. She's more concerned about her eagerness to talk to the detectives. She really pushy. This is a bossy woman too. She's even bossing the detectives around. Like, hey, listen, uh, let me get to this first, and then we will get back to that later. Oh yeah, she was trying to run the show. And of course the detective, he's going just along with her because he don't want to upset her because he wants all the information she can give. But when we listen to her, how dictating she was, dictating to the detectives, kind of telling him what his job is and what she's going to tell him. This is how I'm going to tell you this. Now, she kind of reminds me of a Jodi Arias, that kind of girl. Oh, yeah, eager to make phone calls, eager to send him texts in the middle of the night, not even in the middle of the night, 2 or 3 in the morning. She's texting him. I know he says, if you remember anything, you can always call me and stuff and text me. But, all hours of the day, he told her to write it down. Write it down if you remember anything. So, of course, she's remembering stuff, but she's not remembering, she's remembering silly stuff. Remember when the detectives asked her what they talk about? And at the beginning, she goes, oh, well, we didn't really talk about a lot. Oh, my God. Didn't talk about a lot. Well, who's with somebody and they don't talk about nothing? Okay? Yeah, you were sure because you know all about his life, his mother, his father, her father, the Thrive, how many kids she's got, where she lives, all about her house, all about his history, his last job, the amount of money they earn, what she drives. You sure didn't talk about nothing. The health issues. The wife's sick. She's got this. She's got that. The kids are allergic to this. The peanut allergy. Oh yeah, but she don't remember what they were talking about. If it was a truthful person, I know she's got things to hide. She sure does have things to hide, but we can't prove it. We can't get the facts. The only facts that we can get is her, I don't know if it's FaceTime. I don't know if you can get that, really. I don't know about FaceTime. I've never FaceTime. But you can get texts, emails, and all those kind of things. But what they say behind 4 walls, what they were saying, you mean they couldn't been jumping around in bed bonking all day, could they? Do you know what I mean? Bonking around. Bonking? Having sex. That means having sex. Bonking. Now I'm talking English now. Yeah. Well, you can't be doing that all the time. So you're making plans. You're making plans, and you two have said a lot together. But she's trying to save her skin. Oh, yeah. And she knows Chris Watts ain't gonna talk. So she can tell what story she wants to tell. Because Chris is never gonna say if she was involved or not. Because he liked her. But she's turned her back on him. Well, I'm just saying, if you like somebody that much, if you love them and you have feelings for them, there's a lot of people that can't turn your back on that person. It just takes time for that to happen. Now, there's lots of wives and husbands that have murdered people close to them. They couldn't, their kids or something, and they still protect their wife or husband because they just don't want to believe that they did such a crime. So, but she was quick to turn. She was quick to get on the internet, start reading up on stuff. Amber Fry, she was quick to say how much money she's going to earn. She was quick to do all this. I mean, my God, she wasn't even worried about when she said she was sick. She goes, oh no, not because of they're dead. She said she was sick because of her own worrying about stuff, but not because they were dead or anything. She, she turned around and said that. Well, my God, why did she say that? That's because that's how she feels. She don't care. Of course she don't care. Because we don't know why she don't care like she should care. Everybody else cares. Everybody else that don't even hardly know her. The whole wide world cares about what happened to these kids and his wife, and have shed tears. They don't even have never spoke to these people, don't even know him from Adam. But this woman doesn't shed a tear. No, she isn't worried, all right. So anyway, that was Troy McCAY interview, and he also says Luke is heartbroken too. Luke, his interview. He has spoken to Luke, and he is just heartbroken as well. These people knew him very well. He wasn't that type of person. They just can't believe it that he turned into this animal. Or just remember, guys, the quiet ones are always the worst. That's what we say. This is why I'd rather have somebody say something to you than be quiet, because you don't really know what they're thinking. But if they let you have it, you know exactly where you stand, right? The quiet ones are always the worst. And plus, people think there's something wrong with Chris, mentally ill or something. Mentally ill. Well, he could have been mentally ill at this time, because anybody that murders their kids and children and dumps them the way you got to be mentally ill. You got to be, distant yourself. You've got to, it's like a blackout. How could you do such a thing? And then that one statement that Nicole made, like I made in my last video, when I said Chris was talking to her that Monday night, when he was in the house by himself that night, how quiet he was and not talkative, and wanted to see her face. And she just thought, it's the middle of the night, Well, it wasn't the middle of the night, it was evening, late evening, that he wanted to look at her face. Like, God knows what else he wanted to look at, but we won't even go there, okay? About his laundry. And now he stated that his kids' sheets smell, and they smelled. And she found that very odd that he would say something like that. That's why she wanted to speak to the detective about it. And he had to wash the sheets. I'm just going to be a bit morbid here. But, you know, just say that you killed your wife about 3:30, 4 o'clock-ish, because we know Shanann or somebody was on the phone ordering hair color. We guess it was her, but you know what? It may not have been her. It might have been Chris, but I doubt it. But I'm just saying that. But whoever it was 2:30. 2:30, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. Because Chris did state 4 o'clock in the morning that they had emotional conversation. Well, this is where I think maybe Shanann, because she said her girl, she wasn't going to get much sleep because her girl CC was going to be up about 4 o'clock, 4 or 5. You know, sometimes they jump into bed with her and they go back to sleep. You know what I mean? So this is where she may have checked on the kids and they were dead already, because if your sheets smell, that smells of death. Now, if you only just killed your kids, say 4 o'clock, or after he killed Shannon, say 4 o'clock, and then you are getting them ready, putting them downstairs, and you've got them ready to load up in your truck, right? Which he did load them up about 5:15 and left at 5:30-ish. So he was bringing them downstairs and everything. They wouldn't have been in their beds that long, would they? For your sheets to smell. But if your kids were in bed a little bit longer, they would decompose and they would start, fluids would start leaking out, because that's just your body empties itself. So that's just a normal process of when you're dead and you start emptying. It's an emptying process. You pee yourself, you poop yourself. That just happens. That's just a normal process. So I'm thinking he killed them much earlier. They were probably after his everything shut down, you know, like the father called and it was time for bed, put the kids to bed and everything. Yeah, he put them to bed all right. He said good night. And that's why he was acting so strange that evening, quiet. And he was house cleaning and he had to keep himself busy, 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 busy. And Nicole brought that to the attention of the detective that, you know, when you do have something on your mind, you really do. You keep yourself busy, don't you? Because you have to get that stress out of you. So I'm just really thinking that it happened early. But they can't determine what time because they just can't. But for them sheets to smell like that and for him to have to wash them, he was destroying evidence, wasn't he? So when you think about it, certain things that you think about now, we can put two and two together. Just comments that he made, unless she's making it up, because she sure said that. She could have been making it up, couldn't she? But I doubt it. But we never know because we know she's a liar. So that's just my opinion. I'm just having a discussion about it, you know. So anyway, guys, what do you think of this Troy McCain's interview? It's a very sad one. It's the saddest one I've heard. Really? Oh yeah, somebody with emotions, somebody with feelings. Yeah, and that was his friend. He let him down big time. He let his friend down big time. The poor man is going to be, how's he going to make friends again with people? He's never going to trust people, is he? But you got to trust, you know, until you don't, because you won't be able to live if you don't trust people. He's going to be looking at behind his back. He's going to be looking out in the fields. You know, he's going to be looking at people, you know, watching their every move. That's going to be a sorry way to live, isn't it? But he's a church-going guy, and so faith will heal him, I guess. So anyway, guys, let's discuss this video and your thoughts and comment. Nice comments. This is just a discussion, like I say in every video. I am discussing a phone call, and let's not put nobody down. You can all have your opinions, but just keep it clean. Okay, guys, thanks for watching the video.